Welcome back to another episode of Marcelina, my Reliance 44 sailboat refit project. Well, while I was still in the shed, I finished up some last-minute preparations, such as painting the hull. Then the boat was pulled out of the shed and saw sunlight for the first time in quite a while. The boat was towed over to the launch area and lowered down into the water. And lo and behold, it floated just fine. Then it was a matter of stepping the mast, the main mast first, up on the crane, lowered down through the deck, and right onto the top of the keel. Then it was on to the mizzen mast, which is stepped right on the floor of the cockpit. One issue I was a little concerned about was the rigging, because I had replaced all the standing rigging and had also moved the chain plates from being through the deck to the exterior of the hull. So I was very pleasantly surprised when everything seemed to line up just right. Some of the rigging lengths weren't exactly right, but they were pretty close. And last time I also promised I might be able to show you some sailing. So I was out just sailing along nicely and oh no! Okay, just kidding. I haven't been out sailing, and let me explain why. Well, the first problem was when being towed from the launch area over to my slip, I was behind the wheel, and just as the boat began to move, I heard a bang under my feet at the helm. Well, it turns out that where the Dyneema line, which runs over the quadrant, attaches to the chain, which goes up around a sprocket in the binnacle. Well, that last link in the chain, there was a pin missing, and as soon as any pressure was put on it, it pulled right out. So I had to basically disconnect everything, take off the binnacle, fish out the chain, retie the Dyneema line to the next pin up the chain, and put everything back together. I also needed to make some modifications to the rigging, including here shortening the running backstays. I also put extenders on a couple of the shrouds and also repositioned the bottom of the mast to get the forestay and the backstay tensioned properly. While we were launching the boat, or just after launching the boat, I found that the automatic bilge pump was pumping water up the hose so that the float switch would kick off. Then the water in the line would drain back down into the bilge and kick the pump back on. Rinse and repeat. Well, this went on for about an hour before I wised up to what was going on, and I ended up pulling the fuse. The problem was that now the boat was unprotected in case there was a leak when I wasn't there. So I immediately purchased a one-way valve and installed it so the water would not run back down into the bilge after it got pumped up. Also, Igor, my canvas guy, finished the Dodger, so I was able to install that, well, at least temporarily. I have since removed the Dodger and taken it back to Igor so he can make a couple of slots in it where the main sheets, those red lines there, will actually pass through the bottom of the Dodger. There was also some sorting out of halyards that needed to be done, and that required me going up the mast. So with my trusty ground crew and a new bosun's chair, up the mast I went. I tied a bowline knot in the jib halyard as the main lifting line, and then used the wire halyard for the mainsail as a safety line. It was just my first time going up a mast, and I must say I kind of enjoyed it. I can't imagine actually going up while at sea, however, because you'd really get flung around by the motion of the boat. Just the guys moving around on deck in a still marina caused some motion up the mast that was a little disconcerting. But with all the things needing attention, the one thing that really scuttled the sailing season for me was the engine. We tried everything, and I mean everything, that myself and several different mechanics thought might actually bring this beast to life, but it just wasn't to be. So before I put any more money into it and started replacing all sorts of parts, I decided to cut my losses and dispense with the diesel engine completely. After several days of removing cooling lines and control lines and wiring, we finally pulled the engine out, and my brother-in-law had actually found a good home for it with a local mechanic. Now, this means that I'm stuck in the marina for the rest of the season, but I will have a shiny new electric motor and a custom-made lithium-ion battery, actually 2 batteries, as auxiliary propulsion. I'll make a separate video that details this and explain why I'm electrifying the boat. The motor should be arriving any day now. However, because the batteries are being custom made in China, they won't be delivered until late October. This means that the actual testing of the new motor and the whole new propulsion arrangement won't be done until I'm probably back in the water next spring. Also need to change the pitch of the prop, and that's going to be a lot easier when the boat's out of the water for the winter. So while I wait for the motor and the batteries for my new propulsion system, I've been cleaning up the engine bay. Meanwhile, my carpenter Mike has been working on the head, including a new wall to cover where the mast enters the space, and a Corian floor pan. The cabinetry in the main salon is pretty much done, and I just need to get it varnished and get the cushions made. So, look for the video on the electrification of the boat probably sometime in mid-September, followed by another video in which I show a pretty much complete interior, probably about 80% done. Won't have the cushions yet, but the rest of the cabinetry will be in, it'll be varnished, and it should be looking fairly finished. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks.